He's never boring, never boring. Our great Nigel Farage, the leader of reform in the UK. Yeah, we're going to keep doing that every week. I like it. It's my favourite, one of my favourite things about the man because it's pushing it back against the BS. Now, great man, for my sins, every now and then I've got to check out what The Guardian has to say, but I did notice that they went on some sort of a fact-finding mission to work out why are so many young men attracted to Nigel Farage, and among other things, Nigel Farage feels real. I love when it takes them months to catch up to what you already know.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I just speak straight. I am what I am. I've never pretended to be anything other. And, you know, I suppose I like a pint and I've got a sense of humour.
Oh.
And maybe that's what some of the young people like. I mean, God forbid, I know, isn't it terrible? I'm real.
Yeah, unbelievable. And again, let's talk about the polls again, where UK Reform, you're now, 7 points ahead of the Tories. What we've been talking about for months here is just about saying, OK, what's the sugar hit? Are people moving around or is something starting to solidify? What's your sense about that now? And given that you're one point off the existing government, that's extraordinary.
Yeah, we've had an amazing run. I mean, let's be frank, ever since the general election, we've built momentum, we've built membership, we've built structure, political structure across the country, i.e. putting volunteers together in groups. We've been selecting thousands of candidates and vetting them to fight elections. So we really have been busy. And frankly, you know, what we've achieved in 7 months is little short of phenomenal. Now, of course, this is politics. It's not all plain sailing. You can surf the wave as long as the wave is there. One day the wave's not there and things get tougher. And I'm aware of all of that. I've been through these ups and downs. But the overall trend, the overall feeling that, as it's now called commonly, the uni party, meaning Conservative and Labour, who frankly, you know, there isn't much to choose between them. Hardly any of them are recognisable as household faces or names. What they've got to offer is a diet of gloom, misery and decline. So yes, it's absolutely real. People want a new, fresh, positive alternative.
But I have to ask about what's been around this week, that one of your MPs seems to have had a bit of a crack, suggesting that all of it is, you know, you being led as you being the messiah of the party. Well, I'll give you the tip. The only reason there's any Reform MPs is because of this bloke on the screen right now. Let's be honest about that, OK? So tell me about Rupert Lowe and why he's wrong, and has he apologised, and is all of this just the people who hate trying to find a way to break you up?
Well, look, you know, he has done some good work as an MP, lots of written questions, big Twitter X following. But I've been here before. You know, you build something up and somebody else thinks they can do a better job than you. So I think it's no secret he'd like to be leader. He thinks he's going to be the next Prime Minister. He even said to a group of us the other week, I will destroy anyone that gets in my way. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm in the way. And to have said what he said just 2 weeks before nominations go in for the English County Council local elections, to attempt to spread demoralisation amongst our thousands of volunteers who are out there getting ready, really is a very, very bad thing to do.
And what about the people trying to pretend that there's been some sort of erosion in support? I mean, again, two things can't be true, right? You can't have a poll that comes out that says you're 1 point away from the government, you're 7 points in front of the party that is the biggest, the second biggest. That poll will bring you, 180-something seats? That'd be a phenomenal result. But also, apparently they're all a little bit nervous because of Trump and Zelensky.
Well, I mean, one thing that has happened is Donald Trump's popularity in Britain has fallen. And of course, I'm associated closely as a friend of his. Look, there was the row in the White House, and, you know, the English don't like rows, as you famously know. And there's a feeling with these negotiations that maybe at the moment it looks like Putin might get too much out of it. But this is not over. We don't know what conversations are going on between Trump and Putin. And I would actually counter much of that by saying the fact that as we speak, we've got senior American and Ukrainian politicians meeting in Saudi Arabia trying to thrash out a peace deal says that actually, whether you like the twists and turns of this, Trump is on the right track and is the only man that can bring an end to this war.
Something that's really fascinating about what's playing out in America with Trump at the moment and Musk and Doge is that very obviously they are doing what millions of people want, which is if there's a dollar wasted, get rid of it. If there's a person extra, get rid of them, all right? But we're seeing such institutional pushback, and yes, there were tens of millions of people who voted for the Democrats, and they're going to be the ones until I see the Trump supporter who's changing their opinion, then all of this essentially is just one giant blob that's screaming back. But let's imagine if in the UK, because I know in Australia, right, there'll be politicians that say, oh, we want to thin the herd, but the second they do it, people will blow up. How do we square this circle where the millions of people who want reform, and I mean that in the non-political party sense, they want reform, but the second it happens, why are you doing it?
Well, interestingly, Keir Starmer, over the course of the last 2 days, has started to say the number of people living on benefits is unacceptable. Well, yes, Prime Minister, I absolutely agree. But already we've got public sector bodies, we've got quangos, we've got trade unions up in arms. The truth is, in all Western countries, the state and the apparatus of state has got bigger with almost every single year that's gone by. We are up against, if we want radical change and reform, we're up against very, very powerful vested interests. And it's going to take nothing less, frankly, than all-out war to get the size of a state to reduce. And I would argue that given that Trump has got the House, given that he's got the Senate, given that he's got a majority on the Supreme Court, they won't always rule his way, but there is a majority, I would argue that America has got 2 years. It's got between now and the midterms to make those radical changes, and they must not fail. They must not fail, because they might not get this chance ever again.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the need for this change, we're talking about something as important as what Thatcher was able to do with these sort of old school, obstinate unions, and we know what the other side of this fight looks like. It's bright, sunny and good for countries.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Maggie is a very, very good example to draw because she did take on the state. She literally just abolished quangos. Goodbye, you're gone, we don't need you. And of course, the confrontation with the miners in 1984 was an epic struggle between a Marxist leader of the miners' union and a conservative leader with a big majority. Sadly, of course, the people that got hurt were the miners and their families. But winning the battle against the Marxist trade unions meant that by the late 1980s, we had gigantic international firms like Nissan, who were coming and investing in the UK, and over 300 foreign banks, including all the Australian ones, setting up big headquarters in London. So we've seen this before. We know it works, but we know the fight against the vested interests, the fight against the status quo, you've got to be determined to win.
Good man. Thank you so much, Nigel. I really do appreciate it. We'll see you again next week. Nigel Farage, the